We were married for 55 years, Carol and I, and for the last 8 of those years, we barely said a word to each other. Not because we hated each other, not because there was some big fight or some terrible betrayal. We just stopped. Stopped talking. Stopped trying. Stopped being anything more than two people who happened to live in the same house. My name is Donald. I'm 79 years old. Carol passed away 2 years ago, and I'm sitting here now, wishing I could have one more conversation with the woman I spent my entire adult life beside. Just one. But I can't. And the worst part, the part that eats me alive, is that I had thousands of chances and I wasted every single one of them. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how we ended up where we did. Carol and I met in 1967 at a church picnic. She was 22. I was 24. She had this laugh that could fill a room, this way of looking at you like you were the most interesting person she'd ever met. We talked for 5 hours that first day. 5 hours. Couldn't shut up. We talked about everything, our families, our dreams, what we wanted our lives to look like. She wanted to travel. She wanted to see Paris. She wanted to open a small bakery someday. Nothing fancy, just a little shop where people could come in and feel at home. I told her I wanted to build things, start my own construction company, make something with my hands. We got married 11 months later, and for a long time, it was good. Really good. We'd stay up late talking about our days. We'd argue about stupid things and then laugh about it. She'd tell me about the books she was reading, and I'd pretend to care even when I didn't, because hearing her talk about something she loved, that was enough. We had 3 kids in 6 years. Michael, then Christine, then baby Thomas. And that's when things started to shift, slowly, like a boat drifting off course by a single degree. You don't notice it at first, but give it enough time and you end up miles from where you meant to be. With the kids, everything became logistics. Who's picking up Michael from practice? Did Christine eat? Thomas has a fever. Can you get the medicine? Our conversations went from dreams and ideas to tasks and schedules. And I told myself that was normal. That's just what happens when you're raising a family. You don't have time for long talks about the meaning of life when there's a toddler screaming and the bills are due. But here's what I didn't realize. We weren't just putting our conversations on pause. We were letting them die, one by one. The deep talks stopped first. Then the casual ones got shorter. Then even the small talk started to dry up. By the time the kids were teenagers, Carol and I could sit in the same room for an entire evening, and the only words spoken would be, "What's for dinner?" and "I'm going to bed." I didn't see it as a problem. I saw it as peace. No fighting, no drama, just 2 people coexisting efficiently. I thought that was a successful marriage. 55 years and no big blow-ups. We should get a medal. Carol saw it differently. She tried, I'll give her that. She'd say things like, "Don, we should talk more." And I'd say, "About what? We're fine." That word, fine. I used it like a lock on every door she tried to open. She'd ask how I was feeling about retirement. Fine. She'd ask if I was happy. Fine. She'd ask if something was bothering me. Fine. What she was really asking. Every single time, what she was really saying was, "Please let me in. Please talk to me. Please be my partner again." And every time I said, "Fine," I was slamming the door in her face. I see that now. I didn't then. There was a night, I think it was around 2008 or 9, when we were sitting on the couch watching television. Some show I didn't care about. Carol turned to me and said, "Donald, do you remember what we talked about on our first date?" I didn't even look away from the screen. I said, "That was 40 years ago, Carol. I don't remember what I had for breakfast." She got quiet. Didn't bring it up again. Years later, after she was gone, I found a letter she'd written that night. Never gave it to me. She wrote, "I tried again tonight. He didn't hear me. I don't think he wants to hear me anymore. I don't know when I became invisible in my own marriage, but I think it happened a long time ago and neither of us said anything about it." Reading that letter was like getting hit in the chest. Invisible. My wife, the woman I loved, felt invisible. And she was right. I'd stopped seeing her. Not her physical presence, she was always there, but her. The person inside, the woman with dreams and fears and things to say. I'd reduced her to a function, someone who cooked, who kept the house, who organized the holidays. I forgot she was a human being who needed to be heard. Our kids noticed before I did. Christine came to me one Thanksgiving, must have been 2015 or so. She pulled me aside in the kitchen and said, "Dad, are you and Mom okay?" I said, "Of course we're okay. Why would you ask that?" She said, "Because you don't talk to each other. You sit in the same room and it's like you're both alone." I brushed it off. I said, "That's just how it is after this many years. You'll understand when you're older." She looked at me with, this look I'll never forget. Pity. My 38-year-old daughter was pitying me, and I was too proud or too blind to understand why. The silence between Carol and me. It wasn't peaceful. I told myself it was, but it wasn't. It was heavy. It was full of all the things we weren't saying, all the questions we weren't asking, all the feelings we were swallowing because it had been so long since we'd been honest with each other that we didn't even know how anymore. Carol got sick in 2020. Lung cancer, even though she'd never smoked a day in her life. The universe doesn't care about fairness. I've learned that much. And suddenly, we had a deadline. The doctors said maybe a year, maybe 2 if things went well. Things didn't go well. Those last 18 months were the most honest we'd been with each other since the first year of our marriage. Not because we suddenly became brave, but because there was nothing left to protect. When you're running out of time, pride stops making sense. She told me one night sitting in the hospital that the loneliest years of her life were the ones she spent married to me. Not all of them, but the last 15, 20 years. She said she'd stopped trying to reach me because she was tired of being rejected. Not dramatically rejected, just quietly, consistently. The little rejections, the ones that don't look like anything from the outside but feel like a door closing every time. She said, "Don, I stopped talking because you stopped listening, and after a while, I forgot how. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that wasn't fair, that I was there, that I never left. But she was right. You can leave a marriage without ever walking out the door. You just have to stop showing up emotionally." And that's exactly what I did. I stopped showing up for Carol without ever leaving the house. In those final months, we talked. Really talked. For the first time in years. She told me about her dreams. The bakery she'd given up on, the trip to Paris she still thought about. She told me about a poetry class she'd taken years ago that she'd never mentioned because she thought I'd think it was silly. She recited a poem she'd written, about a woman standing in a garden, waiting for someone to notice the flowers she'd planted. I don't need to explain the metaphor. You already understand it. I held her hand and listened, and I thought about all the years I could have been doing this. All the evenings we sat in silence when we could have been talking. All the times she tried to open a door and I kept it shut. Not out of cruelty. Out of laziness. Out of the stupid, arrogant belief that showing up was enough, that being present in the room was the same as being present in the relationship. Carol died on a Wednesday morning. The last thing she said to me was, "Talk to me, Don." I don't know if she was lucid. I don't know if she knew what she was saying. But those words, they'll follow me for whatever time I have left. Talk to me. That's all she ever wanted, and I couldn't give it to her. There's a man in my building, Gene. He's about my age. His wife is still alive. They still eat dinner together every night. And from what I can see, they've fallen into the same silence Carol and I did. They sit across from each other and stare at their plates. No words, no connection, just 2 people occupying the same space. I told Gene my story last month. All of it, the silence, the letters, the regret. He listened quietly, and then he said, "But what am I supposed to talk about? We've said everything there is to say." I said, "Gene, you haven't even started. You think you know her? Ask her what she's afraid of right now. Ask her what she dreams about. Ask her about the happiest day of her life. I promise you, after 50 years, there are still things she hasn't told you. He looked at me like I was speaking another language. But 2 weeks later, he told me he'd tried. He'd asked his wife what she was afraid of, and she'd started crying, because nobody had asked her that in decades, and she had an answer. She was afraid of dying alone, even though they were together. Same thing Carol felt. If you're married, if you're in a long relationship, I need you to hear this. Silence is not peace. Comfort is not connection. And fine is not an answer to anything worth asking. Talk to the person next to you. Not about the groceries, not about the bills. Talk to them about what matters, about what's real, about what you're both thinking and feeling and afraid of. Do it tonight, not next week. Tonight. Because the silence, it doesn't stay empty. It fills up with distance. And once that distance gets wide enough, you can't cross it anymore. I couldn't. Don't end up like me. 79 years old, sitting in a quiet house, replaying conversations that never happened. This channel is about people sharing what life taught them the hard way, so maybe, just maybe, you don't have to learn it the same way. If this reached you, subscribe and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Tell me what you need to say to someone that you've been holding back. Hit that like button. And if you've got your own story, something real, something that came from living through it, there's a form in the description. Fill it out. Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear.